One comes to a point in their life when all you want to do is spend time doing simple things, like wood carving, watching your grandchildren grow up, or daydreaming about cute anime girls. But the most popular titles of this genre just don't do it for you. You're too much of a man of culture and sophistication to be satisfied with what the majority considers to be good slice-of-life anime. For this reason you keep compulsively searching in the most exotic places for the sweet kawaii, until eventually you discover that part of the internet which lies beyond the Asian streaming services of questionable legality or Discord servers where admins are too polite not to be on the FBI watchlist.
Yeah, I'm 27 years old, by the way, and I want your daughter to do stuff for me.
I'm talking about that part of the internet where anime like Malice doll exists. A wonderful anime about life for the whole family.
Can you leave the room, though?
Speaking about really esoteric movies or shows, one remembers The Killing of the Sacred Deer, El Topo, or Pink Flamingos, but Malice Doll is even more obscure than the aforementioned examples. Malice Doll was produced in 2001 using the most advanced computer graphics of the time, with its plot consisting of softcore hentai and hardcore searching for the so-called deeper meaning. In every episode, a robotic sex worker by the name of Malice is walking about the streets of a grotesque post-apocalyptic city, taking in the scenery, I suppose, until she stumbles upon an Amogus-type thing which transforms her into a real girl. Malice decides to turn everyone and everything else who are still surviving in the city into biological creatures. At the same time, she is trying to find out what is this angelic creature that she keeps meeting in the city. Usually shows like Malice Doll are filled with references to other movies or literary pieces, either because the subject is too unfamiliar for the target audience and needs to be covered up with familiar and recognizable elements, or actually, there is no original ideas. Authors are copying narrative or aesthetical elements from another work of fiction. For example, The Matrix is at its core the story of Jesus and Judas. The Shining is about the negative side of family values presented as a ghost story. Mother is the Old Testament retold with modern memes. It is not difficult to make a movie with what they call deep meaning. All you need to do is to understand a story that is deemed culturally significant, but give it a new coat of paint and a facelift. CGI, modern jokes, and other markers of the currently trending things. Then everyone will think that you got that 200 IQ multiverse brain because you somehow reinterpreted a very complex narrative. Not only that, but you updated it to fit the current generation. You are that smart, really. Oh no, you did not just copy plot lines and story beats that can be decades old. As everyone knows from their high school years, when you're copying the other guy's work, you have to change it up, or else the teacher will know you're cheating. Or they did know, but they didn't really care about your future, so instead of supporting and motivating you to study honestly, they let you cheat. If since your childhood years you have been feeling comfortable with cheating on every test you had to take and watching anime, then leave a comment about that time when cheating actually worked out for you. Judging by its grotesque and at times provocative style, Malice Doll is based on two children's books, Pinocchio and Alice in Wonderland in particular, all wrapped up in softcore hentai and 2001 level of quality CGI. The three-part series begins in what looks like to be a post-apocalyptic city, where everyone went extinct except for several sex worker robots and their supporting robotic staff. One of the sex worker robots wakes up and goes for a walk, because even the end of the civilization is no excuse to let yourself go. The name of that robot is Malice. Now that is a deep metaphor if I ever saw one. Firstly, this is a reference to Alice from Wonderland, whose story takes place in a dream, and in a way so does Malice's story. While taking a stroll through the remains of civilization, Malice starts to leak. No, it's not what you think, it's some kind of a technical fluid. But later Malice will be leaking that other stuff that every anime fan knows about. Malice decides to go for repairs, and on her way she gets sidetracked by a cute girl glowing with radiation. While trying to catch up to the angelic creature, Malice ends up in a hentai. She finds whatever this thing is and decides to kiss it, because that's the only thing she's programmed to do. Tentacles shoot out from the ball thing and penetrate Malice. After Malice wakes up, she feels fantastic. She transforms from a broken robot into a real girl. As you might have guessed, Malice meeting the angel and transforming into a real girl is exactly what happens to Pinocchio, who becomes a real boy thanks to the blue fairy, and gets the privilege of breaking his back at his uncle's sweatshop for the rest of his days. After her transformation, Malice starts visiting all her robotic friends and kissing them, because even after becoming a biological human, she can disobey her programming.
I will be reporting you to police.
No, you won't do shit.
But now, after getting kissed, all her friends get a little something to kiss. Everybody kissed by Malice turn into mutable people, I guess. In her mind, Malice even came up with an excuse for her culinary perversions. Since all her robot friends are in dire need of repairs and all of the clients went extinct, they no longer need to stay robots who must obey their programming, or so Malice thinks. By becoming biological, they can free themselves from the ties to the world that no longer exists. Everyone kissed by Malice kisses someone else, and within hours all of the remaining machines turn into something living and breathing. And then something went wrong. Before, all the sex worker robots could live forever, provided they repaired regularly, but now everyone is biological and they just can't control themselves.
I know I'm hot. What the fuck? Control yourself.
Or to be specific, the show suggests that the robots living in this setting began to suffer after turning biological. Let me explain. At first glance, it seems that Malice doll plot is supposed to develop like a zombie apocalypse story, but from the point of view of the zombies. Malice turns everyone into whatever they turn into, and then discovers that her plan to rescue the robots from death by slow decay backfired on her and her friends. Except it really didn't, because nothing actually backfires on Malice. The anime tries to show that there is something bad in turning all robots into meatball people. Perhaps the point Malice doll is trying to make is that no one has the right to decide what is best for someone else, even if they actually need help. But all the machines who become biological after Malice's kiss don't really suffer because of their condition. In the beginning they were robot sex workers who lived in their own little world and didn't bother anyone. After Malice converted them all, they became mutant sex workers who live in their own world and don't really bother anyone. The physical change that all the characters experienced didn't change them in the moral sense. Before the change, all the inhabitants were repeating their routines, and after the change they are all stuck in their meaningless routines once again. Except they are really ugly now. But for some reason Malice panics when she has to face the non-problem she has created, despite the fact that nothing substantial has changed in the predicaments of all the characters. The change that the people of the Red Light District experience does not change anything fundamentally. They didn't become worse or better, they just look different. But for some reason Malice has a moral crisis and she wants to return everything as it was, because now it's not like before, and that's bad. To cut to the chase, Malice fights that ball thing again, where she faces herself. The second Malice lectures the first one about some philosophical nonsense, which allows original Malice to become a fairy herself, and she flies away. While other characters immediately forget about everything that happened, they turn back into their original forms, and they return to their dull original existences. Well, that's one hell of an afternoon walk. Except for that plot hole when Malice regrets everything she did, although she didn't really do anything fundamentally evil. Before, robots lived in some kind of abandoned shopping mall and they're all falling apart. After, mutants live in a shopping center and they're all falling apart. But they get to play with themselves until they die at least, which they already were doing when they were robot sex workers. But after mutating, it became a bad thing to do, for some reason. Apart from this plot hole, Malice doll is a 12 out of 10 anime. Early 2010 CGI is not as atrocious as it could have been, because every single shot in Malice doll is drowning in shadows or shots are composed well enough that you never notice how actually bad the CGI is. The plot is quite unusual and goes in depth into themes that are very rare when it comes not only to anime but to any genre. Let's go through the good part one more time. Malice thinks that she can help her friends by turning them into living beings. But Malice forgot that she and all her friends have personality traits that cannot be changed, no matter what happens to their bodies. And that's why they begin to overindulge. What was normal, or rather bearable, before, now became uncontrollable and dangerous. Malice constantly says that she can do anything but kiss everyone she knows, which leads to negative consequences for everyone around. You can't give someone access to an easy source of pleasure or else they will lose control over themselves. Despite its complicated plot and grotesque style, at its core, Malice doll is a very straightforward story of actual help versus egoism disguised as help. Which is essentially what Malice doll is doing before she realizes how much harm she unintentionally caused. Wanting to save her friends from a slow death, Malice turns them into living beings who can receive pleasure from their own and others' bodies. But without preparing her friends for their new lives, Malice doomed them to a slow death, and they don't even realize. Fortunately, Malice grows a conscience. Malice realizes that she gave her friends something they can't handle, and now they're hurting themselves. This is what Malice understands when she meets with an alternative version of herself from that meatball. Malice realizes that what seems objectively good to her is not so for others. This is not a trivial psychological task to understand that other people are not like you, and what seems objectively good to you is actually a figment of your imagination and selfishness. How Malice's Phantom says that what is true and not what you want to consider true. After realizing how wrong she was, Malice becomes a full-on energy creature and flies away, leaving the abandoned city behind her. At least she didn't forget to turn her friends back into their original selves. It's just amazing how well made this anime is, especially considering how obscure it is. If a random guy in a conversation didn't tell me about Malice doll, there is no way I would have ever found out about it. Objectively speaking, Malice doll is not the greatest anime ever, but considering the themes it's working with and the low production values, the level of quality you're getting is great. It's surprising what hidden gems you can find just by accident.